Hello and welcome to the At the Races Grand National preview programme. We're going to talk about the big race, all the other races across 3 fabulous days at Aintree. And with me to do exactly that, in association with our good friends at Boyle Sports, is Mr. Tom Collins, star of print and screen increasingly as well, top pundit, analyst and tipster. Good to see you, Tom.
Good morning, Sean.
Here's a question for you. It's a bit of a left field question because I haven't prepped you for it. First Grand National memory or favourite Grand National? What stands out for you when you think of the big race?
First Grand National actual memory of watching was Amberley House.
Right.
And
So young. So young.
Yes, yeah.
I was only one when Mick won. I had to. And favourite memory, maybe Mon Mome, not from a punting perspective, but from a story perspective and the interview after.
100 to 1 shot, Mon Mome. No need to ask Mick Fitzgerald, who has actually ridden a Grand National winner. I presume that's your favourite Grand National. Stupid question, rough quest.
Yeah, very much so. I may not be very tall in stature, but I feel like I grow a little bit when I walk through the gates of that place. Liverpool's an amazing city, but I think the Liverpudlians make the Grand National the race that it is. You know, it's a very special race.
Yes, and you'll always be remembered there and everywhere else besides as a national winner. We're going to talk more about the big race and your thoughts and feelings about it with you, Mick, in just a moment. Before we go any further, though, there is a chance to win these, which are 2 tickets. For Grand National Day itself. This is for the county enclosure at Aintree on the Saturday for the Grand National. Pair of tickets, and they could be yours. All you have to do is comment. If you're watching on YouTube, get into the YouTube comments down there and write win, basically. If you write the word win, that means you're in the competition. We'd love any other comments, of course, as well. So enjoy the conversation with your fellow viewers, of course. But win, and you could be in with a chance of winning these 2 tickets for the Grand National on Saturday. That's going to be decided on Wednesday, the 2nd of April. So if you're watching this a bit later on in the week, don't worry about that. Still comment, but if you're in before we select those on Wednesday, the 2nd of April, you could win a ticket, 2 tickets to the big day itself. Mick Fitzgerald, it would be remiss not to reflect more on your success. It's the biggest race in the calendar. Someone would say it's the biggest race in the world.
Yeah.
We know what you said immediately in the aftermath of it because we wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah.
In terms of how it affected you beyond that, did it change your life and career and stuff like that?
I think it did. I always wanted to win a Gold Cup more than any other race when I set out, but it was only after I won the National that I realised the magnitude of the whole thing. I can remember I got invited to Sports Personality of the Year, which, trust me, in those days was the hottest ticket in town because everywhere you looked was a megastar of sport, and you're suddenly in that category, and it is like it's quite a nice experience.
It's still a big deal, but you won't know this, Tom.
No.
As Mick says, it was an even bigger deal in those days, and maybe that's true of the race as a whole and just things in general. The focus on that when you were winning the Grand National, certainly when I was first watching Grand Nationals, you watched the build-up all day long, and it was what everyone did together.
Yeah, well, yeah, and suddenly you see the whole grandstand crew descend on Liverpool as well. You know, Des Lynam, Sue Parker. Yeah. You know, like when you have those big stars showcasing our race, it doesn't become any bigger than that. It really doesn't. And you know, people always ask me about memorabilia and stuff that I have. I actually have the calling card that Peter Bromley, who's sadly no longer with us. So I don't know if you can see that.
So that's his colouring in for.
That's basically his colour chart that he used to call the race.
That's amazing.
And people talk about now, there's only 34 runners in the National. When I won the National in '96, there was only 26.
I was going to say, there doesn't look like there's that many runners on it.
Only 26, and that is actually the number cloth that he used as well. Graham Welcome, I've got to thank him for that. He, again, no longer with us, but he saved that for me and gave it to me after the race. So
before your time,
special.
Again, Tom, young hustlers in their the great party politics.
Well, even if you look at the names of the riders, look down the bottom of Sure Metal. Who's riding that?
Donald McCain.
Yeah. Yeah. So Donald McCain obviously is a little bit heavier now. But, even he I think will like that.
It's great stuff. The race, Tom, where do you think we are with it now? It's a different race. We don't need to rehearse why it's a different race. Where do you think we are with the race now?
Well, it's just progressing, isn't it? We're seeing classier horses now target the Grand National than necessarily we have in the past. We've got a smaller field than we have done in recent years, down to 34 runners. And obviously the obstacles are smaller, as everyone knows. That leads to trainers now targeting Gold Cup horses at the race. I mean, if you go back to just 2017, so 8 years ago, we had just 15 horses rated 150 or higher. This year, we've got 25. That shows the level of horse that is now targeting the Grand National. And it's only going to get more and more pushed towards the better horses that we've got right now.
Yeah, it is indeed. I actually crunched some numbers. When I say I crunched some numbers, I asked a well-known AI to crunch some numbers for the rolling averages from 2005. So for the last 20 years, and I asked it to look at the rolling averages for the age of the winner of the Grand National, the weight carried, and the starting price of the winner of the Grand National. Now, these won't be a surprise, but starting from 2005, rolling 10 years, so we kick in from 2014 up till now, the average age has dropped from 10 to 8.5. Now, 8.5, the rolling average. So I'm looking towards slightly younger horses. The starting price, average starting price, has reduced considerably as well, despite Noble Yates winning at 50 to 1. Monmone's not that long ago either, but despite that, the weight hasn't changed that much. But it's kind of what you'd expect, I'm guessing, Mick, the sort of a classier, younger, smarter horse coming to the race, maybe?
Yeah, but even if you look at how the race is run, they're nearly the whole field is still intact.
Yeah.
Jumping the water with the circuit to go. Yeah. You know, when you have that, you kind of take away a little bit of the lottery element of the race.
Definitely.
Which was always the lure, or was always the one thing to put people off running horses in it, because you were worried about being brought down. And, you know, it's that thing as a rider, you're down at the start, you're walking around, and you have an X on certain horses. I am not following that, I'm not following that, I'm not following that.
Well, you did. Maybe not everyone was.
But I did that. And then the year that I won, I actually had, you know, horses that I want to follow, which is the other side of the coin. And Party Politics, who'd won a national, brilliant jumper. I'd actually been placed in a Hennessy on.
Good unit to slipstream.
Good unit to slipstream behind. And I thought, I'm going to get close to him. Luckily, I didn't, because he fell early. So,
well, that is the great unpredictable nature of the race. In terms of how it's going to pan out, the market has been taking shape. We've got probably 3, 4, 5 horses who've been disputing favouritism for a while. Who are the key players as you see it at the moment, Tom?
Well, I think JP McManus has a strong hand. Iroko and Iron Maximus are his two main horses in the field right now, and they're towards the top of the market. Iron Maximus won the race last year, so we know that he handles the track, the trip, and conditions of the National. Iroko is the young gun on the scene. You have to then factor in the cross-country horses, Stumptown and Vanillier especially, considering that Tiger Roll obviously used that route in the past.
Twice. Didn't happen last year, but there was no cross-country last year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Hewitt, because of the ground. They're the main horses. There is one that I haven't touched on there, which is Intense Raffles, who sits towards the top of the market. He is another young gun in the race. He has the potential to go and win this and win it nicely, but I think it's more potential than what we've seen so far.
7-year-olds, Iroko and Intense Raffles. Yeah. Noble Yates was a 7-year-old, and also a French baby. It feels very young, doesn't it? But maybe that's the way we're heading.
Before Noble Yates, it was 1940, the last 7-year-old to win the race.
But how many 7-year-olds used to run in it? The profile is so different, isn't it, Mick? You used to be 10, 11-year-olds who had the experience that you needed to.
Yeah, but also they had a lot of runs over fences. Like you think of a horse like Noble Yates, he was a novice, really. So
also a trend buster.
You know, and so that's, you've got to factor that in as well. And like, he was one of the horses that actually made them change the conditions of the race to say that you have to run at least 6 times over fences. So, you know, in the old days, you could have had only 3, 4 runs and be in the National, which you would have thought, well, nobody's ever going to try that. But because of the way the race has changed, the temptation is now to do that. So I think because they've done it the way they've done it and put conditions in there that mean that you have to have had a lot more runs.
We're going to get a selection of 4 from each of us before we wrap up our Grand National. But Tom's touched on the top of the market there and the JP factor.
Yeah.
Not even rolling the dice with, I know the way you're thinking. He would have been thrown in, presumably. It would have gone off a pretty short price favourite. But still a really strong hand for JP.
Oh, yeah. And I think looking at, you know, the amount of runners that he has in the race, but the quality that he has in the race too, I think one of the speciality bets could be JP McManus to win the race, because I do think he has a very strong hand, and I think I Am Maximus and Iroko, just 2 alone, you know, without thinking about the likes of Percival Lagalwa, they're 2 that near the top of the market who a lot of people will fancy.
Of those, it sounds like you're leaning more Iroko of the JP players. What about you, Mick?
I went round and round a little bit. I went back and actually watched I Am Maximus again, just to remind myself of how good he was last year
How much would it have taken to stop him?
and how much he quickened up.
Yeah.
But you have to factor in that it's drier ground this year. He hasn't had as good a preparation coming into the race as he did last year. I think you've got to factor that in as well. I think for that reason, Iroko, when you go back and look, he was second last year to I Know the Way You're Thinking in that Grade 1. That's strong form. And remember, he was rated 152 when he finished second to I Know the Way You're Thinking. He's still rated 152 and he's running in his first Grand National.
Okay, we put our heads together and said, what price is it that JP wins the race with the firepower he has? You came up with
9-4.
I came up with 2-1. 2-1 is the price with Ball Sports, actually. Ball Sports
I was hoping for 3-1.
Well, you're a very greedy
dreaming.
fella. Aren't you? Very greedy fella. I mean, you can just go through and look at their prices and roughly tot it up, which is what your bookmaker is going to do. And of course, that could change. They could lengthen, in which case that price might get bigger. But it wouldn't be a surprise if one or two of those tighten up, in which case the price could get shorter as well. So if you fancy that JP special, that's the price with Ball Sports. We touched on Hewick there in running. Who brought up Hewick first of all?
Yeah.
And ground for Hewick. He's a King George winner, so the class is there. How do you think it's going to ride, and do you give Hewick a chance?
I do give Hewick a chance. Obviously, he's a very small horse in stature, but he's got a massive heart and he's a good jumper generally. Grade 1 winner, as you say, from the King George. And Shark Hanlon can't be saying a bad word about him, can he?
Well, he's convinced to be our favourite. I'm not sure I agree with that.
No.
But
Well, he is becoming the wise guy horse.
Yeah.
Wise guy is a very US term, but you know it's the
he's
horse
not
that
far off it. What is he, 10-1 now versus 8-1? So
Exactly.
It could happen.
he is the popular one on social media. He has got a chance, of course he does. I'm not fully convinced with him. But look, I can't have him completely off the shortlist.
I think if you had a Mr. Frisk style ground, I think Hewick would definitely jump to the top of the mark.
Well, that's still the course record, I think, Mr. Frisk.
It is.
And we're never
But
going to
that
see
was good to firm. No,
we're never going to see that
never.
ground again, are we?
Never. But Hewick, so remember when he went over to America to run at Far
Yes.
Hills,
Yeah.
and he bolted up round there, and I can remember when I went to ride there, and they said, oh the ground's lovely, and I said, oh, what do you call it? And they said, good. I went out and walked it, and I thought, this is firm.
Yeah.
And Hewick loved it, and I think if you did have really fast ground, the drier the ground, the better I think Hewick's chance. So, yeah, I think that the ground is the key.
We've touched on this. It's never going to be a good to firm Grand National ever again. But how will it ride? The water plenty, obviously, Mick. But then you can only maintain it once the meeting starts, presumably. But
And then remember, you have a 4 o'clock. The good thing is they brought the race forward to 4 o'clock from 5, which I think will help. But looking at the forecast, my goodness me, who would be a clerk of the course? Because like there's no rain. It looks like it's going to be breezy too. So, you know, it'll be all hands on deck up there to try and maintain a relatively slow start.
one thing we do know is that you're not going to get proper soft ground, presumably, or deep ground. Certainly, we haven't touched on the cross-country runners, Stumptown and Vanillier, both of whom, Stumptown obviously won the cross-country. Vanillier probably ran better than his finishing position, Tom, given
Definitely.
the scenic route that he took.
Yeah, obviously going over the first obstacle, Sean Flanagan should have put the handbrake down and gone left, but he didn't, which caused the horse to go from first to virtually last in the race, and that was a big defining factor. And the way he stayed on up the hill suggested that if he didn't go right at the start and went to the actual course, then he would have gone very close. Stumptown's the form horse with 4 consecutive victories. Vanillier's the horse that potentially what could have been at the festival. Both are going to be popular and both are very talented, but this is a different test to the cross country.
Can I just ask Tom something on that? Because the one thing I really fancied Stumptown. The one thing I was disappointed with him at Cheltenham was how hard he found it. He didn't travel with his usual zest.
Completely agree.
And that would be a little bit of a concern for me going into a quicker ground national. Like, would that be a concern?
It would, especially considering when horses rack up a sequence of wins, largely they're not going to be fully extended every single time, but it looked like he was fully extended to win at Cheltenham. And maybe the time before as well, he had quite a hard race. Different ground, different test. I'm sure you've ridden in many cross-country races.
Yeah.
You need a different kind of horse from the Grand National. And also, if you go back in Stumptown's form, when he was running just over regulation fences, and I know this isn't regulation fences necessarily, but he was a 140 horse.
Yeah.
Now he's running off 157 due to his cross-country efforts. That's a little bit high for me.
Okay, let's look a little bit further down the sort of the price list into the 20, 25 to 1, that kind of price bracket. What have we got in there? Can Do Kid, we haven't touched on, I suppose. Nick Rocket.
Yeah.
I wonder with the handicap's been a bit harsh on Nick Rocket, Mick. For me.
Yeah, look, I would love him, this horse, as a type for a national, because he's got a bit of size about him. He'll be able to handle the hustle and bustle of the race. Remember, this horse was a very short price favourite for the Irish national last year, and he bombed out. I think it was on his 4th or 5th run over fences on that occasion. So I just feel that the handicapper hasn't missed him. I'd love him to have £10 less, and if he did have £10 less, I think he would be a player. But that just makes life difficult for him. I could still see him running a big race, though.
Yeah, I actually bet him in that race you were talking about in Ireland last year, anti-post, and I'm not an anti-post player. And I thought he was going into it with a great chance, and as you say, he just completely bombed out. This year he looks a different horse, and he's jumping.
Forgive one of those though, if there's
100%.
It's a blip, sort of a run.
People on social media are so quick to write off a horse after one poor run, or even Constitution Hill, for example, falling. People are just writing him off for this race. It's ludicrous. So
we'll come back to that.
Well, yeah, always forgive a horse one bad run.
Yeah,
and he's proven this year that he's a lot better. But I don't think he's the best Mullins horse.
Anything else on that 2025 to 1 bracket for you?
I think both Grange Clare West and Minella Kakuna are worth a mention. Minella Kakuna will love the ground. Maybe he's a bit clumsy and gawky, but he's got the talent to go close. And Grange Clare West, completely unexposed. Only 11 starts, 5 victories. Go back to last season, he smashed Hartwood and he smashed Corbett's Cross. 2 very good chasers. Now, his jumping's not great and he has to carry a lot of weight, but he's a good horse and he's 20 to 1.
Second to Galloping Deschamps earlier this season, which is, well, it's not actually that long ago. It's only 2 starts back.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
Form with Factor File as well.
Yeah.
Anything for Nicky Henderson in the race?
He's got Highland.
Yeah.
And he's got Chantry House.
Chantry House.
Highland is an interesting contender. I never saw him as a national horse until late in the play. But if you go back and see where, like, he ran a hell of a race behind the Jukebox Man in the Feltham. He brings a little bit of class to the race, in the sense that you're not sure how good he is over fences, so he could have a little bit of scope for improvement and off his mark. Ground won't be a problem for him either, so
no,
it's Nicky Henderson, isn't it?
Yes.
That's poor old Nicky. Like, I would dearly love to see him win.
It doesn't.
The Grand National.
Yeah, everyone wants to win it, don't they? I suppose, but it feels like his focus would be more on the Grade 1s. But you're looking to say no, he wants to win it.
Oh, he does want it. Yeah. Like, when you think his very first year training, he finished 2nd in the race with Zongalero.
You think it's a matter of time at that
absolutely.
point?
I think it's 47 years ago.
It's still only a matter of time. Paul Nicholls has won the race, Tom. We saw Can Do Kid on the graphic, who looks, I guess, the obvious one of his team, but it's a strong team. He's 4 or 5 runners, I think. Yeah,
it's an interesting battalion, isn't it, for Paul? Can Do Kid's definitely got a chance if he stays. I think stamina's the big question mark with him. But he's a good jumper and he's been aimed at the race, supposedly. I presume Harry Cobden will be on Can Do Kid. I feel like it's a tough ask to beat some of those towards the top of the market for Paul Nicholls with the whole of his string.
None of them screams unexposed.
They don't.
Yeah.
We kind of know what they are. Yeah. Can Do Kid is open to the improvement, but the stamina is the big question.
The stamina is the question mark with him. The stamina question mark with another Paul Nicholls horse who I've included in my quartet, only because he's a massive player. He's 100 to 1 shot. He's Hitman, who doesn't know, in my view, how to run a bad race. Kind of jumps and just motors and stuff like that. Stayed on reasonably well over 3 last time out. It's an unknown in terms of the going, but he's a big prize for a horse of his quality, I thought.
My question mark would be, does he want to win? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think that's probably a little bit harsh. Jello was in front of him last time, and Jello's had a great season. Maybe you think maybe a question mark there, or no?
No, I look. Is it just luck, or is it? What is it that means he finishes 2nd a lot?
Exactly, and because he's such a smooth traveller as well, that's a bigger point, right? It's not like he's staying on well behind horses, maybe gets outpaced, stays on well and finishes 2nd and bumps into one. He travels up like he's going to win, and then rider presses the button and there's nothing there.
I just think he's... Yeah, I'd worry about him staying.
Well, luckily for me, Boyle Sports are paying 6 places on the Grand National. 6 places
It'll be
for
like
the Grand National. Well, 100 to 1, I think, is the price for Hitman. So 25 to 1 for the place. Well, 20 to 1 probably. It's probably 5/5 the odds for 6 places, I'm guessing. But check out the details on boylesports.com. But he's 100 to 1. So any before we go to our final 4 selections, any other?
Can I just chuck in Manila Indo in there?
My horse last year.
Yeah.
Ran a huge race.
Look, I know he's a 12-year-old. I know the stats are going against the older horses now, but he is a horse he's lightly raced this season. He's got a bit of class.
Yep.
I think he's 1 or 2 pounds lower than he was last year. A good run earlier this season. Henry de Bromhead's horse is in much better form. I can see him arriving there, having every chance. Maybe getting run out of it close home, but at the same time being thereabouts. And when you have so many bookmakers paying 6 places, this horse is a big price.
That's a fair point. I was with him last year, and I didn't say a word whilst watching the race at home with the family because I was thinking,
you're getting very excited though.
He's going to win. He's going to win. And just it's likely to happen again. I feel something with younger legs, something slightly better handicap. But I take your point. He could easily run well. Anything else for you before we come to your final 4?
Just 3 very quick mentions. Meeting of the Waters, fascinating horse, very hard to get right, but he ran 7th in the race last year, and with JP, they could bounce right back.
So another JP horse,
Exactly. And then 2 just at massive prices, not from a betting perspective, but just from what a great story this would be. A Racing Post head-on I've got right now.
Okay.
But Haranzu Dairy, who was purchased by Jim Gill for $50,000 at the start of the month. Big price, ex-Willie Mullins, Rich Ritchie horse. If he won, there would be scenes. And the other horse is Shake 'em Up Harry as well, for Harry Redknapp. Yeah. It would be a great story for him to have a horse go close.
Yeah, that's a lot. I see you mentioned social media a couple of times, so people poo-poo, why do we have to hear from Harry Redknapp again? You'd be insane not to talk to Harry Redknapp. If you were with a TV crew at the races, because he's a big character from the big.
And he's known. People see him and they know who he is.
Yeah. And like him, actually.
Yeah, he's a good lad, Harry.
He's a great ally for the sport, and so I can see the logic there. Shall we move on to our 4 picks for the race before we leave the Grand National? Tom, your final 4.
Iroko first, unexposed, ready to run a big race. Couple of rides that haven't seen him at his best this year. I expect him to bounce back and run very close. So he's my number 1. Grange Clare West I'm going to be putting in second at a big price for Willie Mullins. I'll definitely bet him to win as well. He's probably all or nothing and he carries too much weight if you're looking at trends. But I think he'll go quite close. Intense Raffles, who we haven't actually discussed in that much detail, but I'm
Which
sure
is odd,
he will.
because he's going to win the race, but go on.
I think he'll run 3rd. He has good form in the book, represents leading connections. He's just short enough in the market for me, and I'm playing a Roko, so I can't really
same sort of price,
play 2.
Same sort of horse in some ways.
Exactly. But I think he'll be thereabouts in 3rd. And then Iron Maximus, hard to leave out the 4, isn't he, based on last year's win. One quick note on Iron Maximus. The last horse to win the National with just 2 runs in the season, I think, was Red Rum in 1977, or it was 1978. It was one of those 2 years. So you'll have to defy a trend there.
77 Red Rum's final Grand National. That's the first one I remember really vividly, funnily enough, which shows our age difference. Mick, 4 for you.
Okay, 4 for me. Number 1, Iroko.
Okay.
And I just feel that run last year behind I Know Your Way of Thinking was when they decided to put down the foundations for the Grand National. And I think, it's been, the whole season has been geared towards this. They've not hidden that. And I just think that he could be coming good at the right time. So I think he's the one for me. I think second, I think it could be a JP 1 too. I think Ion Maximus is going to be bang there again. I really do. And it was only when I went back and watched the race last year that you see how much he enjoyed it as well. I just think with drier ground, it's probably going to make it easier to carry that large weight. It is a bit of a stumbling block, but at the same time, I think you can't ignore him.
I think last year, you'll know this, Tom, the first 4 home all carried 11 stone.
Yeah.
More. So it can be weight can be carried in the race now. As you say on better ground. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, don't worry. And I think, look, Minelli Indo, I think will be on the premises. He was 3rd last year. I can see him being 3rd again. And the 4th member of the party is Hewick.
Good old Hewick.
Yeah, good old Hewick. I just feel with the drying ground, let's not forget that he won his last race. He comes in here in good form, and the interview with the Shark would be just worth watching anyway.
Scenes.
Exactly, would be scenes. Just to quickly jump in on the weight thing, as I did my prep on the trends, I thought it was worth to say. Only one horse has carried more than 11 stone 6 to win the race since 1977, and that was Many Clouds.
Yeah.
So it is, you can do it, but it's tough.
Well, going back to my rolling 10-year averages, which you might remember from earlier on in the show, that was the one thing that hadn't moved as much as I expected it to. I'd have thought it would have been drifting up more than it has over the last 20 years. Actually, it's hovering around 10, 11, that sort of weight for the winner, which surprised me slightly because my sort of received wisdom was you can carry big weights in the national. It used to be you just wouldn't even look at anything carrying 11 stone plus. You know, you just assumed you had to be around the 10.5 stone, the rough quest weight. 10.5 stone. Yeah, but interesting. 10, 11, that sort of weight is fine. Oh, 4 from me we need as well.
Come on, Sean.
Okay, Intense Raffles is just so obviously the pick in this race for me. He's £5-6 officially. Well in Irish national. I went back and watched that the other day, and he was so impressive. But you were just saying to me, Mick, that's the other way round, of course, which I hadn't really factored in.
I just have a sneaky that he's probably going to be. He does have a little tendency to jump a little to his right, so.
I hadn't really.
And he's like when you look at his, and it's interesting. Tom Gibney was asked about this, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I think he'll be okay the other way."
Yeah. Well, go back to September 2021. And Intense Raffles beat a horse called Iroko in an AQPS hurdle round O'Toy, and that will happen again. They'll finish close to each other again, I think. 4 lengths, I think, was the margin at O'Toy. So could lightning strike twice? I think it could. So Intense Raffles over Iroko. Then I'm looking at bigger prices. I've gone with Beauport for Nigel Twiston-Davies. I think
Middleton's national winner.
Yeah, I love the Twiston-Davies team in the Grand National. They've got great heritage in the race. They know how to win it. He's been campaigning with that in mind. Obviously, been hurdling to try and protect that mark, presumably since that. And then I've thrown in Hitman, as I mentioned earlier on, who's 100 to 1 shot. Big question mark over. That's the X factor. Will he stay? And does he want to go past other horses, perhaps as well? If I could have 5, I would probably stick Minella back in, who was top of my 4 this time last year, and I feel a bit bad that I'm deserting him because I love the horse. But those are my 4. Right. We should move on. What we're going to do now, fellas, grade 1s, okay? Because there are a hatful of them across 3 days. We're going to start on Thursday. Don't forget, if you're betting with Boyle Sports, by the way, they've got a special money back if you're second to the starting price favourite during the week. This is for all races. So if you finish second to the SP favourite, you get your money back as a free bet, I think it is. Check out all the terms and conditions that apply to that offer. That's quite a nice concession, particularly these graded races where the favourites will generally be performing pretty well. You'd have thought if history's anything to go by. Let's start with race 1 on day 1, which was the first of a whole sort of fusillade of grade 1s on day 1. The Manifesto Novices Chase, 2.5 miles is the trip for this, and running plans obviously are a bit up in the air at the moment. Django Bay heading the Boyle Sports market. Django Bay, he's the Arkle winner. Mick, the class is there, and this probably more his
look, I think he won the Arkle in spite of being very badly outpaced. And I think it was one of those races, it was almost reminiscent of Champ winning the RSA all those years ago, where he beat Alaho and Manila Indo when they basically pulled up on the run-in. But it's there to be won, but it showed that he does stay really well. We know he likes Aintree. He's 1 from 2 round there. He won the grade 1 when he won that Formby Novices hurdle there. That was on very different ground. He was second last year to Katira in that handicap hurdle when he literally got wiped out. So he does handle the track. The ground won't be an issue for him. And I think he's a solid favourite in here.
You kind of have to make him favourite, Tom. He is the Arkle winner, but as Mick said, I don't want to diss the Arkle victory because it's there, you know. But it's unlikely it would play out that way ever again, kind of the race set up like that. So are we slightly overestimating Django Bay, or is he the right favourite?
No, I think he is the right favourite, and I do like the horse generally. I thought he should have beaten Handstands, personally, on his penultimate effort. And then last time in the Arkle, maybe you could easily say Majborough was the best horse in the race. He didn't jump well. But Django Bay, I love the way he finished up the hill. And he's now 2 from 2 at Cheltenham this season. The way he's jumped around Cheltenham suggests Aintree is going to be a walk in the park over fences. And as Mick's already said, his form at Aintree anyway suggests he should be right up there with the best of these. I think he's the horse to beat, and he will be my play in the race, Django Bay. Stepping back up in trip, should see this horse in a great light.
I'm a bit torn now because I thought Gidley Park would go in the 2 miler because I loved his performance at Windsor. He ran in the Albert Bartlett as a novice hurdler, which was
way too free, wasn't he?
Yeah, and the wrong test for him, although really good horses often are flex. I do need to make a New Year's resolution, though, to stop backing horses with heart issues because I was in trouble at Cheltenham, obviously, with the French horse on that front. It's Il est Francais. But assuming he's in one piece, Gidley, but I like this
Yeah.
horse. I think he was underestimated going into Windsor. I think he might still be underestimated. I think he's a proper horse. And 2 miles, just let him rip, I think would be perfect. But 2.5 maybe on this ground. It's got to be a player.
Well, I wouldn't put you off.
Yeah.
Because I was impressed with what I saw of him at Windsor. It was no fluke that he beat Caldwell Potter, and we all know that Caldwell Potter has come out and done at Cheltenham. So, you know, he is a good horse, but he's a little bit hit and miss with the jumping. And Aintree fences sometimes can catch that sort of horse out. But I don't want to diss him because I was impressed with him at Windsor.
Yeah, I like him. So I've got a decision to make. While I make Django Bay?
Yes, Django Bay.
Django Bay.
2 votes for Django Bay.
Yeah.
I need to toss a coin between Handstands and Gidley Park, and maybe Handstands is I think Handstands is the percentage call. If Django Bay is the favourite, Handstands has to be very, very. Handstands is not declared for this, I'm just hearing now. That makes sense. We're recording as these things are coming through in our ear. So in that case, it's easy for me. I've got Gidley Park if they go here. But maybe he goes...
So do you think Ben Pauling listened when he said we wanted 3 mile for handstands?
I think he probably did. He probably was just hovering over the house. Wait and see what Mick says. Boom. Could be through. It might be the ground is a factor as well.
Yeah.
He certainly stays. We move on to our next Grade 1. We don't have to wait long. It's race 2 on day 1, and that is the anniversary 4-year-old hurdle, the juvenile hurdle. All change really. Lots of people would have been expecting Lulamba to turn up here. Not the case, heading over 2.5 miles, so we'll come back to him. And it means that we're looking probably towards live Conti, Put Your Hands Together, Naturally Nimble, those kind of horses now to be towards the front of the market. So perhaps a little bit different to what we were expecting, Tom. What catches your eye?
Yeah, this race has got a completely different complexion, hasn't it? Obviously, Lulamba's the big one out, but I think Hello Neighbour being out of the race is massive as well. At 5-1, he would have been an each-way play to nothing because his form is relatively strong, and he was unfortunate at Cheltenham because he made a hash of the last when coming to make a big run. With those 2, plus Lady Vega Allen out of the field, I think you have to focus on Joseph O'Brien's runners. Put Your Hands Together was so good at Cheltenham, quite clearly chucked in off that mark, and could be absolutely anything moving forward. We know that Joseph likes to target a good horse at that Fred Winter. So, look, at whatever price he's going to be, we don't have prices at the time of recording due to the fact decks have just been made, but I would say he's likely to be favourite over the Skelton runner.
Could have been the graded horse in a handicap last time, I guess, Mick.
Look,
they do well in.
He's by Caravaggio, Put Your Hands Together, and he got himself a little bit warm before the race, but as the race went on, he actually seemed to relax, which is unusual. Normally, you know, they get more het up, but he seemed to relax, and he sprinted up the hill after the last. Very impressive. I think with Lulamba out, and as Tom said, Lady Vega Allen out as well, I think it opens the door for him to go and win. It
does indeed. I'm having that Ben Pauling might have some success at Aintree.
Mambo number 5.
Mambo number 5, I think it was somewhat being forgotten despite winning an Adonis, but it probably wasn't... the
vintage Adonis.
Exactly, I think that's fair, isn't it? The ex-flat horse should kind of pulled too hard, didn't he, Mr. Mondo Man? So maybe we shouldn't overrate that, but he is an Adonis winner.
Yeah, he's a nice big horse, travelled well, didn't he, Tom? So you can see it, and I think it is a race where you could.
Well, exactly.
You could have a bit of a surprise.
There isn't as much class as we were anticipating there was going to be in this race, so it wouldn't be a complete shock if there was a shock. I do think the other Joseph O'Brien horse is worth a mention, Naturally Nimble, purely because he's a good ground horse. He finished behind Hello Neighbour last time. If you thought Hello Neighbour would go close in this race, then Naturally Nimble probably is going to go close now that the class has been taken out. And he didn't go to Cheltenham, which is a big positive. He's fresh. Not many horses in here are fresh.
Okay, let's move on. Final selections. What are we going for? You
Put Your Hands Together.
Put Your Hands Together.
I think he's the most likely winner, but I'm going to guess at the prices and say Naturally Nimble each way if you can get 4 or 5 to 1.
Okay, I'm going to say Mambo number 5, who I liked actually before we knew that Lulamba et al. Weren't going to be in the race, because I thought he'd be about a 25 to 1 shot. He won't be that, but he'll probably be a bigger price than some of the others that we've mentioned. Let's move on and look at the Bowl, which is this year the Brooklands Golden Miller Chronograph Bowl Chase, and at the head of the market, Grey Dawning, Spillane's Tower, Ahoy Signor, who's finished second in this race the last twice, I think, hasn't he, to Jerry Colombe and to Shishkin, wasn't it? So that's not too shabby, is it? Stage Star. Who wants to kick me off here? Tom, kick us off.
Good race. Grey Dawning is obviously a very talented horse. I love a hoist and yaw here. I have several different ploys as we go through the jump season when it comes to punting, and one is ignore a hoist and yaw until we get to Aintree, and then at Aintree play him.
Well, you do have to ignore everything that's happened before,
You do,
don't you?
but
which is kind of baffling this year, isn't it?
But
Even more baffling than previous years.
We've seen in the past he's a completely different horse at this track, and he seems to come alive when it comes to Aintree and the better ground. He won at this meeting in 2021 and 2022, and then, as you say, placed in this race the last 2 years. 5-1 on that caption. He may be a little bit bigger come the off.
Were you hoping he would be a little bit bigger? Because like with his form, you're thinking he should be bigger.
Yeah,
but he's not.
He wasn't. I do think he might go 6-7-1 at certain points.
It depends, Mick. Do you judge him on this season, in which case he's 16-1?
Yeah.
Or do you judge him on his Aintree record? 5 times he's run at Aintree, I make it, for 2 wins, twice second in this race, and once some place from 5 goes around Aintree. So if you judge him on his Liverpool form,
it's honestly, Sean, it's such a specialist track that I think you have to factor that in.
Time of year for these type of horses
it's
as well.
amazing. You see horses that time and time again, he goes back to a place that he just really loves and he thrives at. Yeah. So I wouldn't put anybody off him, but at the same time, I'm a huge Spillane Tower fan.
I am as well, yeah. Tell me why you like him.
Oh, look, I think last year, he looks like a horse that when he got to the front, he pulled up a little bit. And just think how close he got to Fact to File at the start of the season in that John Durkan. When, if you looked at the 2 horses in the paddock and down at the start before the race, one horse was going to improve significantly more than the other, and I thought that was Spillane Tower. Yeah. They then went to the King George with Spillane Tower.
Tell me about that, because that's a question mark for me.
Well, and for me, because like if you swap the horses round, if Fact to File runs in the King George, he wins and wins easily. Whereas Spillane Tower just got into a little bit of a muddle round there. It's not every horse's cup of tea. Just remember Don Cossack ran round there. He got lost round there. He then went on and won the Gold Cup in March, only 3 months later. So I think you can forgive a horse a run round Kempton. It's not every horse's cup of tea.
Some people would think it's kind of similar because it's flat and you're motoring, but it's a different challenge.
It's a very different cup of tea.
Okay.
And I think I'd love to see this horse go and win for Jimmy Mangan because, he is a good trainer and this is a proper horse.
Grey Dawning, what chance do we give him for the Skeltons?
He's got a very good chance. His run last time was solid. He's generally a very good horse. Maybe he's been stuck in the mud a couple of times this year, especially when second behind Royal Pagaille, I think it was, on his seasonal appearance. The ground will suit him. He's the logical favourite in my opinion, but you're going to get a short price on him. And it's a deep race, as we've talked about. Spillane Tower or Hoist and Yaw both have leading claims.
Yeah, they do. Final pick for you?
Or Hoist and Yaw. I just want to mention second off the wind surgery as well. An angle I love. I think that'll see him a better luck.
Okay. If you get an each way sort of market, he's kind of... He goes in all the each way multiples, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's thievery.
I think he's got to be thereabouts. You giving Spillane Tower another go?
Yeah.
The quality set. After the John Durkan, I thought this is a horse to follow all through the season. Yeah. Like he could go to the very, very top, and he needs to sort of invigorate that thought for me. I do like Hoisinho, and he was kind of I think he's the kind of default pick if you go back to it. But I'm like you. I'd like to see Spillane Tower show us what he can really do. I feel that's still in there. That's not all for Grade 1s on day one. We move on to the Aintree Hurdle, 2.5 miles. We were hoping, fingers crossed, for Constitution Hill versus Lossiemouth. It looks like we've got it. It looks like it's on. Constitution Hill versus Lossiemouth. No, brighter days ahead, no. So Woodoo will be next in. So this is a case of you've got to ask yourself what would have happened. What would have happened if Constitution Hill hadn't come down? What would have happened if Lossiemouth had go to the Champion Hurdle? The great thing is we don't know, which makes this race more interesting because if it played out differently, they'd have already met in the Champion Hurdle. So we get a fresh go at this, Mick. What's your feeling? How is this going to pan out?
I want to see Constitution Hill get back on track, to be honest. I'm not going to desert him now. They've done a lot of schooling with him. He went away. He went to Marcus Foley's. Because in the old days, if you had a horse with jumping problems, they all went to a guy called Charles Radcliffe. Mm-hmm. And when you think Marcus Foley's dad worked for Charles Radcliffe, and then now Marcus is working back in the same place. So he's got the same sort of facilities. They do a lot of loose schooling, and he's been there to do some of that. He went back. I was actually in last Thursday and watched him schooling. And yeah, it looked like he'd learned that there is an option instead of going at everything. He was actually quite quick.
Why was he doing that? Had he become complacent? That he could just do whatever he wants, and
but I think
normally he gets away.
Yeah, if you look at the great hurdlers in times gone by, they've always taken a chance or two. You look at the likes of Istabrack have ended up on the floor, a couple of times.
It's a bit like 2 mile chasers in a way.
The margin for error is so small, and occasionally they get it wrong. And the other day was just one of those times where, he looked like he was going to go that way, and he went that way.
Here's a question for you, Mick, which is it might be unfair and put you in a difficult position, but some people going into Cheltenham thought this was waiting to happen. He was taking a few liberties. There were just signs there that he was just taking his eye off the ball a little bit. Maybe this schooling effort should have happened before now.
Well, yeah, but
or is that the benefit of hindsight?
So look, we're all wise after the event, aren't we? So if you're thinking to yourself, well, look, this is a horse. Like, it wasn't like he went to Cheltenham without schooling. He schooled the week before, and had they have had any doubts, they would have done something different. But trust me, Nicky Henderson is not somebody that just basically says, yeah, he'll be fine, let's go. It doesn't work like that there.
Okay. You've answered my question. How does this race pan out, Tom?
Constitution Hill tracks the speed and wins. Why wasn't Lossiemouth in the champion hurdle?
They didn't think she was good enough.
Well, exactly. So why would she be good enough to beat Constitution Hill now? He's rated 175, Lossiemouth rated 160.
But when did
£7 allowance
last run to that?
He's not been stretched this year to run to that, really.
Well, yeah. How impressive was Lossiemouth over this trip of 2.5 miles, winning the mare's hurdle at Cheltenham?
It was a weak race. She was good. I don't want to take anything away from her, but it was a weak race. There was no Constitution Hill or anything like a Constitution Hill in that contest.
He's not backing down, Tom.
I know.
He's not backing down.
Well, if we go back to that question, why didn't she run in the champion hurdle? Rich Ritchie desperately wanted a winner because they'd had a pretty torrid time of it by their standards for more than a season, the last couple of seasons probably. And Lossiemouth seemed a good opportunity to give it to them. But when you look at what they actually said, Paul Townend said he was going to ride State Man, which is understandable. He's a reigning champion, etc. And maybe his work was swaying him that way. So maybe they weren't scared of Constitution Hill at all. Maybe they're scared of State Man going into the race. Or maybe Paul Townend, being a smart cookie like you, Mick, and a jockey, knows I can't ride both horses in one race, and I can win the champion hurdle on State Man, I can win the mare's hurdle on Lossiemouth, and I can't blame him if that was part of it, even if it's subconsciously that's part of your life. I think that may have played a part in why they went the way that they did. I don't know what's going to happen. That's why I'm saying, how does this pan out? Because I don't know that Constitution Hill gets by her. I'm in your camp, Mick. Like, I want him to do it. I don't know. There's a point and shoot that he goes past.
Why are we doubting him? What has Constitution Hill done to make us doubt him? He's the best around. Well, he's fallen once. He was travelling well at the time.
He was tanking at the time. He was still travelling.
He's done nothing
beautifully.
Nothing to put you off.
At the time, what has Lossiemouth done wrong?
Well, she's proven so far this season that she was maybe not as good as we've seen against the boys in the past. Obviously, she was good at Cheltenham against weaker opposition, but I mean, if she was going to come back to anything like her best, she was going to win that race. It was very weak.
I was surprised how good she was, because I thought she'd had a pretty difficult season with a strange campaign. But anyway, I'm playing devil's advocate. I want to see Constitution go. What's the right price for him? 4 to 5?
I think that's fair. I really do think that's fair. On form, I would have him shorter, maybe 4 to 6, 8 to 13. But if it's 4 to 5, I'm taking
8 to 11. That kind of price at the moment, I think, for Constitution Hill. Is there a price where you don't back him, Mick, and you have to back Lossiemouth? What if Lossiemouth is 7 to 2, 4 to 1?
Well, I think if she's 4 to 1, you'd be backing her each way, wouldn't you? Because you'd be thinking, well, this is a bet to nothing.
Yeah.
Because at worst, I'm going to get a little bit less than my stake. But at the same time, if she was to win, I'm going to hit the jackpot. So, yeah, I think if she gets to 4 to 1, there'll be plenty of people who will want to back.
You've probably highlighted the very reason why she won't go to that price on the fixed odds, but maybe in other markets.
I just worry in a race like this, where's the pace going to come from? Are they going to go, because that's the other thing. If they go real slow, Lossiemouth, she might be a little bit keen. And the one thing that Constitution Hill has got is that electric turn of foot. and the later they leave it to suddenly sprint, the better it'll be for him. But I just think this race has got the temptation to turn into a bit of a sloppy, messy, muddly affair.
I think he could win. I think Constitution Hill can win from the front. He could win from behind. He could win when they go quick. He can win when they go slow. As you say, Lossiemouth can get keen, and also I don't think they would ride her from the front. No, that's not the way to beat Constitution Hill.
Okay, he's got the toolbox, hasn't he? If the jumping holds up, Constitution Hill and the work has paid off. I've been playing devil's advocate. I'm also in the Constitution Hill camp as it goes at that kind of price. I think is fair. Right, more Grade 1 analysis. We move on to day 2, the Friday at Aintree, and we start once again with race number 1, actually, which is the Mildmay Novices Chase, which kicks us off on the Friday. 3 miles and 1, which is, as we've already, I think, identified where we're expecting now to see handstands, Ben Jones and Ben Pauling, and currently 7-4. A very clear favourite, which is interesting. I suppose there's no Django Bay to deal with this time. Caldwell Potter, who got back in front, of course, at the festival last time, at Impere Pass, Mayertown. Who wants to kick me off here? I'm a handstands fan. I kind of would prefer to see him over 2.5, I think, because I think he's got the gears for. I've got another horse that I like in this, but where do you stand on the front of the market?
Isn't the handstands a bit short?
That was my immediate reaction. Yeah,
it really is skinny.
Sorry, go on.
He can win the race. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be favourite. He probably should be favourite on this year's efforts, but that seems like he's taking up a big percent of the market when it's actually a relatively deep race. And this kind of division is so tough to be consistent time and time again.
Yeah.
There are horses in here, the likes of Dancing City, who will be my pick each way in this race. Like, he was not very good at Cheltenham, but he did make a mistake 3 out. You go back a couple of runs and he looked like he was at the top of the division. So I feel like horses can have a bad performance and bounce right back. And in a race like this, I wouldn't want 7-4 about anything.
No.
Okay. Do we know if Stellar Story is in this race still?
I'm keen on him.
Yeah.
Because I like this horse. He's got a... You know, you look at last year's horse as well, like his form at Cheltenham is strong. He's a very good jumper. He's a solid performer.
It's interesting you say that about his jump, because that was my concern. But Cheltenham, that was the best he's ever jumped, I thought. He was good.
He was
solid.
Perfect, really.
Yeah.
Key de Bourbon obviously came down late on. He was still actually travelling quite well when he got rid of Patrick at the top of the hill.
Yep.
So I don't think you can rule him out either. And I think they're... Like
Yeah,
but they're value bets in this race. You know, like if you go back through time and look at the price winners of some of these Grade 1s, there's been a few surprises.
Yep.
Favourites haven't all won in these sort of races. So I just feel that a horse like Stellar Story, who's a stayer, 8-1 is a knockout each way.
I did some stuff for the At the Races website before. He was one of my long shots because of his Albert Bart.
Yeah.
Couldn't get out of my head the way he came up that hill at Cheltenham. He did it again, stayed on well late on. So yeah, I kind of like him at the prices. For you in this race, Tom?
Dancing City each way. He's got course form.
2 Stellar Stories, I think, and despite being a handstands fan, we've ended up there. Let's move on because there's more Grade 1 action to get through. Friday, race number 3. This is the Trust a Trader Top Novices Hurdle. So now we're back to 2 miles for this one. Romeo Coolio, who we did get to see, of course, in the Supreme, and he ran very well in the Supreme to finish third in the end, wasn't he? I think Romeo Coolio. Tripoli Flyer, who we didn't get to see in the Supreme, and I would have quite liked to see in there. Diva Luna, who was another one of my long shots for the festival, and she ran well actually in the Mayor's Novices Hurdle. If she goes here, I don't know if she does, but Romeo Coolio, I suppose the Supreme form is where you'd start looking at this race traditionally, Mick.
Obvious place to start. I think he's a smart horse. I think he's kind of solid. He probably got put in his place by Kopek de Board, but I do think Kopek de Board is he sets a pretty lofty standard. The only thing that puts me off this horse is the price. I think he's a very solid horse. He's a good jumper. Ground won't be an issue. Yeah, I can see him winning because the second favourite in here, Tripoli Flyer, jumping still not quite up to standard, I feel.
Okay.
So that would put me off him a little bit. And Salvatore Mundi, well, you know, he wears a hood. He's a bit of a handful. You know, that puts me off him a little bit. So suddenly I'm thinking, well, actually, yeah, Romeo Coolio, maybe maybe even money's probably about right.
This is exactly what I was thinking when I was looking through the entries last night. I was thinking, well, maybe even money in a race like this, I'll try and oppose him. And then I was thinking, question mark, not sure about this one, not sure about that one. And I actually came down on the fact that this is probably the banker of the week. And I don't like ultimatums. Generally, I know quite a few analysts, pundits, whatever, will go, this can't be beaten. I don't like that.
No.
But with Constitution Hill and Romeo Coolio, I think both of these two horses are very solid. And maybe if I was playing just one of the two, it would be Romeo Coolio. Third in the Supreme, behind Kopek Board, he looked quite special.
Yeah.
This horse has form on the ground. He's got the best form in the race. It's a weak race. I understand Tripoli Fly could be anything, but Romeo Coolio has proven. Even money, that's 50% likelihood of winning. I think he's got a much higher chance than that.
Jonbon was a similar price. Came from a Supreme.
Yeah, but he bumped into a
Exactly.
good horse.
Yeah. But won this.
Yeah.
You know, so similar kind of, both probably ran into really good horses at Cheltenham, and maybe they're the best. Diva Luna was another of my long shots going into Cheltenham. She ran really, really well in the Mayor's Novices Hurdle. For me, she was doing about 3% too much on the front end, but it was the best she's run all season. Been waiting for her to do something this season. Her bumper form was great, but she hadn't really shown it over hurdles. But she did at Cheltenham. So I think in receipt of the allowance, I'd give Diva Luna a chance at a big old price. Melling Chase time. This is all about Jonbon, I suppose, isn't it? And the return to Aintree. I've backed a horse in this race. I won't tell you what. I'll reveal it in a moment. But we've got to start with Jonbon. Do we forgive? In some ways, given the mistake he made, he's run a huge race to finish where he did at Cheltenham. Twice he's done that now. Around Cheltenham, but we know he goes around here.
Yeah, I think 2.5 round here is probably ideal for him. I was in at Nicky's on Thursday, saw him school. They actually schooled him away from Nicky's own schooling ground as well. They took him up to the top of Mandown.
Why would they do that?
Well, only because it's somewhere different.
Right, okay.
Like he can school on our schooling ground, and just he could literally close his eyes and he knows the gap between the fences. So when you take
challenge, wake him up a bit.
just and see where you are a little bit more. And first time up he was a little bit cold. Second time up, whizzed up there. So very much back on track. And looking forward to seeing him go. I think they'll be hoping they don't have the problem that they had was the start. I think got them into a backward position, and they'll be hoping that they don't have a similar sort of thing, because a few of those starts they were messy at Cheltenham. I think the starters got a job to do from the get-go up at Aintree. They need to have a clear and definite process of how it's going to play out.
There's been a lot of talk. I don't want to go into it in detail, but in a nutshell, who was to blame for what went wrong at Cheltenham? Was it the starter, was it the jockeys? Or
I think it was a combination.
Okay.
Because if you have... It's like everything. It's like if you have a referee in a fight, the referee says before the fight starts, right, protect yourself at all times. Even though the referee is there to protect the fighters, you have to protect yourself at all times. So that's in many ways what the jockeys are doing.
Okay.
If the starter says, I'm not going to let you go if you're cantering, I'm not going to let you go if you're coming in faster than a jig jog. Well, if you're following the letter of the law, if they're going faster than a jig jog, they're not going to let you start.
Yes.
But there's a little bit of you that thinks, well, what happens if they do?
In which case I need to stay with them.
Yeah. And then the guy on the inside is like, oh, they're coming on the outside, right? Let's go. And then suddenly you find yourself with the whole mob going forward.
Yeah, makes sense. Jonbon, where do we stand? What's the right price for him? Are you with or against?
I think 4 to 6 is the right price, maybe 8 to 11 if some punters are dubious on him. Personally, I don't think he likes Cheltenham, the jumping test. I know he's won round there. I know he has jumped well round there. But he does tend to put in a clanger every now and again. Elsewhere, generally foot perfect. I think what is required from him is a clean jumping round. If he puts that in, I think he will. Will win. Yeah.
Okay. I've backed a horse at 50 to 1 in this race who didn't complete in the champion chase, but who I think has been consistently underestimated. And that's Liberty Hunter.
I knew that was
of
the
Evan
horse.
Williams, who got effectively outpaced, I think, at the start of the champion chase. Also, sort of just stuttered into, I think, either the first or the second event. And as they went past the circuit to go, was a distance behind, really, and gradually worked his way into the race. I was looking at some of the sectionals in that race, and he put in 3 of the fastest furlongs of any horse in the race in the middle part to get back into contention. I think was bang there when coming down. He did a sort of snow plough, didn't he?
Yeah.
Landed over the fence. Now, you've got to forgive all of that, but I thought 50 to 1, he's probably 33 to 1, 25 to 1 now, that kind of price. I don't know that he's going to go and win, but he's not that horse for me. I think Evan Williams said after his previous run, we know we should be in this company now, and I think he was right. I think he deserves to be in this company. No
disrespect to Evan meant whatsoever, but if he was with Nicky Henderson or with Paul Nicholls or Willie Mullins, this horse would be a lot shorter every time he runs. And again, it's not meant to be disrespectful. Evan Williams is a great trainer, but the punters and the bookmakers tend to just make his horses bigger than they should be. Yeah.
Well, as I say, I'm not.
He's 25 to 1 now.
Yeah, I mean, even at that price, he's. There's big question marks over a lot of the horses in front of him, including arguably the favourite. You could argue on the back of what happened last time. I know there's a question mark over him too, but one is a 4 to 6 shot, and one is going to be a big price outsider. And as I say, I think this trip might be just the Goldilocks trip for him after getting slightly outpaced over the champion chase last time out. Right. The Sefton, we haven't touched on, have we? The Sefton Novices Hurdle, which is also on the Friday. 3 miles for this. This will be race number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the Friday. Pretty open look to the market for this. I backed JetBlue at Cheltenham. I don't think I'll be doing that again.
No, me too.
He was disappointing there, and I think maybe the team weren't in great form going in. So I'm scratching my head a bit here. Battleborn Lad. I just thought, Tom, there's a case for him probably being favourite or close to favourite for this race. I'm a bit surprised he's not a bit more prominent.
Again, it's probably the connections that make him not favourite here. But he was 14 to 1 a couple of days ago, so he has halved in price, and there has been some money. And if you have Battleborn Lad favourite, why would Moon Rocket be 14, 16 to 1? Because he finished second behind him last time at Haydock.
Yeah.
That form's quite strong. I'm going to play Moon Rocket. I am. I think this horse for Kim Bailey and Matt Nicholls, open to a lot of improvement. Prior to that run behind Battleborn Lad, he finished second to Yellow Car, who ran 4th at the festival. The form's working out well, and I think this kind of test will very much suit Moon Rocket. The question mark here is whether Mr. Megget goes to the Sefton or if he goes to the Mersey on Saturday. He's a horse that's got so much upside for a great team as well, and he would be a major player if they come here. I would probably prefer him in the Mersey, but I don't know what route they would take.
Okay, weighed out for Ollie Murphy. I'm not sure if that's going to go there, but yeah, I thought Battleborn Lad was probably the call. Anything for you in that race, Mick?
Not really. I do like Mr. Megget, but is he going to go 3 miles? That's obviously he's a strong traveller, almost too strong to be running in this, and it's a race that's served up a few shocks over the years. So, wouldn't be a big surprise to see a big price winner.
Okay, we will move on. More Grade 1 action on the Saturday, of course. We'll start with the Mersey Novices Hurdle, which is race number 2 on the Saturday, and this is where we're going to see Lulamba over the 2.5 mile trip, which is going to make this a tough race for anyone else to win, potentially. I saw Nicky Henderson, I think maybe chatting to Matt at Newbury after Cheltenham, said this horse of all of them had come out absolutely bouncing, which I was surprised about because it looked a tough race.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is, like, when you see the horse and you see him in the flesh, he's very much a chasing type. He's very much a horse for the future.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the only concern that I have in the back of my mind with this horse. I think he put a lot into that run at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And when you watch the race back, like honestly, he was my nap at a meeting, and I'm watching the race and I'm thinking, oh my God. And then you can't believe he gets beat.
Yes.
But there was a couple of times in the race where, like, even if you watched him going to 2 out, Nick all gave him a squeeze down to 2 out, and he did that and propped a little bit, lost his posse, then missed that position, had to come round. Yet he was still almost good enough to win.
Yeah, his class.
He's
got him out of jail.
He's got a bit of class, and I think, sometimes is that class good enough to get you through? Well, normally in an ordinary race, yes, but in a top class race against fresh horses coming in, That would be a little bit of a concern. That's the only concern that I have, is that has Cheltenham left the mark?
What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment. I was anticipating he was going to run on a Thursday, so I didn't really put him in to my thinking here. I thought Mr. Megget would be the favourite, but obviously he won't be now the Lamber's in the field. If Mr. Megget does go here and he's an each way price, I'd probably play him each way on a track that we know he likes. He ran in that bumper last year at Aintree and got absolutely crucified on the turn, and it was just game over. But every other run has been a winning one, and one with authority, so he has a lot of upside. One other horse to mention, who could be a big price now that Lou Lamber's in this field, is Royal Infantry, who was 14-1 prior to knowing that Lou Lamber was running here. This horse didn't run very well last time, but Dan Skelton has repeatedly said this year he needs good ground. He didn't get it last time. It was good to soft description, but it was soft ground. And I think we'll see him in better light. So he's won at huge odds.
Okay, so a couple to consider for the Mersey. I think Gordon Elliott's won the last three, so maybe we should just look at whatever Gordon Elliott ends up running.
Maybe.
Let's move on to race number 4 on the Saturday. Our next Grade 1, which is the Liverpool hurdle. This is the staying hurdle, of course, and Tiapu, who didn't quite deliver at Cheltenham, is expected to be in here. Home by the Lee, in here, of course, as well.
Strong leader.
Yeah.
Strong leader, perhaps, as well. I'll start with you, Tom. Tiapu, my concern about him would not be whether he's good enough, because he probably is. My concern would be...
Ground?
No, they always run this horse super, super fresh, and he needs long gaps between his runs. Yeah. And he had a tough race at Cheltenham, and this is just 3 weeks later. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. I also think ground is a problem with him. So, look, I loved him at Cheltenham. I thought, actually, maybe he'll get away with the ground there. He didn't. He ran well, and he smashed the remainder, didn't he? He was way clear of the third, but he bumped into a Bob Ollinger at Cheltenham, who always performs. This race, I think you've kind of got to go away from Tiapu. And I'm not the most loyal of punters anyway. And at short prices, I feel like if a horse doesn't have their ideal conditions, you've got to take them on. Strong Leader's the one that I'm going to go for each way.
Okay.
Loves the track, will love the ground. He's been racing lazily, but on ground that's just not been suitable for him of late, and hopefully Sean Boyce can give him a good ride.
If we're looking at the Stayers Hurdle form, again, it's a horse who didn't complete, unfortunately, in the race. It's Home by the Lee. And Bob Ollinger won the race, and Home by the Lee had beaten Bob Ollinger twice in the season prior to that, and I think probably would have finished close to or in front of Bob Ollinger had he jumped round, presumably. Does that not make him the pick here?
I can see it.
Yeah.
The thing is, with Home by the Lee, he's better at the start of the season, I think.
Right, so different profile to some of those we talked about before. Yeah.
And he's a bit more of a slogger as well, and not necessarily that he
ground again might not.
Not that he can't quicken, but he continues at that top speed for quite a while, whereas others are stronger on the bridle and then kind of weaken late in the race.
Yeah.
He'll need it to be more of a slog than it's likely to be, I think.
Yeah. Mind you, he wants a better surface, doesn't he? He doesn't want it. Yeah. I think he's the obvious one, home by the just because of the Bob Ollinger connection. If Bob Ollinger could beat Tiapu, then Home by the Lee, who'd previously beaten Bob Ollinger. Maybe I'm oversimplifying. The other horse I liked in here at a big price, I don't know if she'll go, is Jessie Harrington's mare Jatara, who I liked over 3 miles at Doncaster. And she ran okay in the mare's hurdle, but she had a tough task up against Lossiemouth. I think this kind of trip,
flat track,
big price. Yeah. Big price.
Trainer. I'm with Tom here. I like Strong Leader.
Okay.
I think back on a flat track, he's proven here at Aintree, and I think you can't underplay that. So I just feel this is a better fit for him.
This is it's very much his trade. Hasn't perhaps produced his best always elsewhere. The Maggle Novices Chase we go to next. L'Eau de Sud, I think, goes this way. I think was the word earlier on this week, and I think Dan Skelton said we know now how to ride him. L'Eau de Sud. I thought he ran pretty well at Cheltenham. What did you make of him, Tom?
I thought he ran great at Cheltenham. Yeah, he got beat obviously into 4th, I think it was, but he was only a length and a half off the winner. In a bunch finish. How weak is this Maggle Chase going to be? I mean, Gidley Park's supposedly not running here. There was only 7 horses entered anyway.
Yes.
L'Eau de Sud's going to be a short price, I think, and they'll probably justify it. But this is not a race that I'll be rushing to play, and I have to admit.
You think you'd like Harry Fry to rethink?
I like Gidley Park a lot, but I think 2 miles and let him rip is probably the thing. I think he's only got the one gear, but it's a good quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I quite like horses over 2 miles when they're doing that, rather than. I mean, he clearly gets 2.5. He gets 3. But, yeah, I'd rather see Gidley Park here, but I don't think we're going to. But I think we will see Lodesude here, who I liked at Cheltenham, and unfortunately was in a lot of cheeky anti-post each way multiples. That's because I thought the race would cut up. It did, and he still didn't get in the frame.
No.
But he did run well, Mick.
He ran a very good race. What he is a very neat jumper.
Yeah.
And he would love. He's going to be a better horse in some of those handicaps, you know, where they go a really good gallop. He can just hold his posse and just keep improving without actually doing anything, using any energy. And I think as a novice, that is a bit of an ace card. Around this track, I think that will be massive.
Yeah.
Obviously, Gavin Cromwell's mare in here
Only by night.
Only by night. I think she's really interesting. You know, she ran a hell of a race at Cheltenham. And,
she did, yeah.
You know, it was interesting that they went this route with her as opposed to going for the mare's chase. So, I think if she turns up here, I think you've got to respect her.
Okay, we've come through all of the Grade 1s. We've already done the Grand National. So only remains sort of any other business, anything in the handicaps or bumpers that anyone has spotted. Anything catch your eye, Tom?
Just one for me at this stage. I do like to wait for the decks, final declarations for handicaps, but I like Primoz in the 440 on Thursday for Lucinda Russell. He's very inconsistent, this horse, but make no bones about this, Lucinda thinks the horse is top quality, and she doesn't get it wrong very often, as we saw on Open Show with Kelso, a few weeks back. He's 8-1, didn't run well at Cheltenham, but was outpaced and out the back for a long way, and then started to stay on behind horses. If he can travel better, jump better, I think 8-1 will look a very big price.
Okay, I think he's in and declared, so that's good. You're halfway there.
Good.
Halfway there. It's often worth waiting because sometimes these handicaps are very defensively priced anyway.
Exactly.
So
and doubly entered. And
yeah, exactly. It's tricky.
You know.
Anything else? Anywhere else? Any hot words on bumper horses?
Yeah, I just think that, you know, with some of the bumpers, the market can very often get it pretty right with some of them. Trainers with 2 horses in a race as well, you know, very often.
Fergal O'Brien had the first 2, didn't he?
He did.
Horace's Pearl.
And Triply Flyer.
Yeah, Triply Flyer and Horace's Pearl. Yeah, they could both go well this week as well. I had a couple of thoughts just to close. One was on the Fox Hunters, horses coming from the Cheltenham race to Aintree. And the obvious one would be, will it go ahead?
Yeah.
But there was a horse in behind on the ropes who finished about 8th or something, has beaten 20 lengths probably, but came from an impossible position. And maybe I was looking, he was just kind of eye-catching, probably an impossible position because he was too slow. But I thought he'll be a massive price if he turns up here on the ropes. And the other horse, I was looking for the sort of the Skelton handicap good thing, and interestingly, not in their stable tour on the At the Races website. I haven't mentioned the horse. And this is in the Red Rum Chase on day 1, and this was just a quirk. I was looking at the last sort of 10 years or so. A couple of horses won from out of the handicap, which I don't like horses out of the handicap as a rule. But what's noticeable is everything that's winning and running well is 10 or less in that race. Now, if Matata stays in. I'm assuming he's not in. Forget that theory. Rip that theory up. If Matata stayed in, it would push a lot of horses out of the handicap. And there's a horse called Etalon who sits just in the handicap. It will go up a little bit now. Horses sub 10-10, but within the handicap, there was only a few of them in there. Etalon just looks like he might have been well campaigned this year, and I'd still probably like him, but not quite as much as I liked him a few minutes ago when I thought Matata was going to compress the weight. So there you go, best laid plans and all that. I think that just about does us, fellas. Thanks very much to Tom Collins and to Mick Fitzgerald. Thanks to our sponsors at Boyle Sports. And don't forget those offers, of course. Money back if you finish second to the SP favourite in any race across the festival. That's as a free bet, I think. Check out the terms for that. 6 places on the Grand National as of now. There'll be all kinds of other offers as well. A few specials. 2-1 for the JP winner, which I think Mick would be nearly tempted by at that sort of price as well. Many thanks for your company. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, put win in your comment to have a chance of winning these 2 tickets for Aintree Grand National Day itself if you get involved before Wednesday, the 2nd of April. Thanks very much for your company. Thanks for Tom and for Mick's input as well. Enjoy Aintree.